What is up, everybody? A little bit of a change of pace for this week's podcast. I'm actually going to be repurposing an interview I did with Chad Nicefield, singer of the band Wilson, from here in Michigan. I do freelance writing for a local website around here in Grand Rapids called localspins.com. We review shows. We put like a spotlight on local artists and upcoming shows coming to around town and whatnot. So I asked to do a feature on the band. And since I've known those guys for a really long time, I kind of had noticed that everyone focuses on them being a party band, being really energetic, all things that are true. However, it's not what I wanted them to be known for. I know those dudes are very serious. I've seen the work they put into the band over the last 5 or 6 years, and I wanted to paint them in a different light than I think the average person or the average journalist, I should say, really does. So I reached out to the label and got Chad to do this small interview with me. We discuss a lot of things that kind of date this interview to when the events happened. At this point, the attacks in Paris had just happened recently. Something I know that the band had, played at the Bataclan before and subsequently after those attacks happened. Just kind of seeing what the mindset of a touring band is when you have to deal with some of these international issues that may prevent you from touring or whatever. So I thought this would be really timely, especially in light of kind of the political climate we're in now and a lot of the traveling stuff, bans and whatnot that are going on. But just as a whole, I thought this was a pretty interesting chat with Chad, someone I've known for a while. And just kind of wanted to, paint the band in a different picture than just being, a fucking party band that lucked into everything they do, because that is most certainly not why they're in the position that they're in, why they've achieved all the successes that they have. It very much is their blue-collar work ethic and just, busting their ass and putting their all into what they do and being humble and gracious for everybody that listens to them and goes to their shows and all that. And I think in this interview, you'll see and hear the sincerity that Chad has on behalf of the guys in Wilson. So I think this is a good interview. It was the first thing kind of podcast-wise I really had done. The audio's a little but I still think that doesn't negate that this is a good conversation. So with that, we'll get into the episode and stick around to the end, and we will have a track from Wilson. So, Chad from Wilson, singer of Wilson,
Hello.
wanted to ask you some questions, and I guess I'm going to start with the most recent thing that I've been wondering. You kind of screwed up my line of questioning when you shaved your beard last week or so, because I was going to say, what's it like having something so identified as for the band and for you as a person, but now you've shaved it, and to a degree, we've kind of seen the reactions, but how surprised were you at the reaction you've got from just shaving your beard, something that some people do all the time?
I can't say that it wasn't a surprise, as far as, like, the reaction being a little bit more of a, I want to say a big deal, because in the grand scheme of the world, this is definitely the smallest of deals ever, but, like, it was always one of those things that we talked about inside the band and whatnot, about, like, what would happen having it as long as we have and been, labeled as like a bearded beard drinking rock and roll band. What would happen if that went away? Luckily, during that period of time, we've had people like Jason and James and even Kyle, grow some of their own facial furries, and so there's still represents them. But it was just time. It's been 7 years since I've seen my own chin, and it was time to just do something different. And on top of it, I'm like a stressed out dude all the time, and when I get stressed out, I pick out the bottom of my beard, just like my little nervous habit or whatever. So I had like developed all these like cavernous holes underneath my chin, and it was just looking really nappy underneath there. So I'm, the objective is to grow it back out. It was nice to see my chin. I can say that I think the initial shock to people is like welcomed, because it is just one dude's face, so that's a good deal. But I suppose I get it in a way, but at the same time it's hair and it grows back, and hopefully in a few months everybody will just calm themselves down about it, and they'll have a beard. Everything will be okay. The world is still going to continue to move on.
So, are you going to do a new line of merch with you without a beard? Redo all the old merch designs with you without a beard now?
No, I don't think we'll do anything like that. Well, I do have a pretty killer mustache going on right now.
Yeah,
Maybe I can get some mustache patches or something like that. Caterpillar on my face.
So something that I have noticed over the years of following you guys and being friends with you is your dedication to working with individuals that you're really closely tied to, like Joe, Gal, doing the photography for you guys, doing band photos, even so much as doing the cover photo for your new album, Right to Rise. And Nick being, one of your management people. How strong does the sense of, wanting to work with individuals that you guys know personally, how does that tie into what you guys do? I'm trying to figure out a better way to say that.
It's I get what you're saying. For us, it's a admiration of our friends, and people and what they're doing, from their own lives. Like not only when you talk about Joe, Joe's been doing this for a long time. In his own right, he's far more successful as an artist, I think, than probably Wilson is. But it was for us, it was our way to shine any sort of outside light that maybe does or does not know about his great work. And on top of it, he does a really great job of capturing, the essence of the city, from its worst parts to its best parts. And I don't think there's anybody out there who does it better, around here. So with that being said, if we could shine light on, in any dark corners of the world, that illuminates, what the talent that's, here in our city, that's going to be our first and foremost goal, at least who we go to first. Even the videos, all the music videos that we do are with, pretty much the same, our buddy Ray has done pretty much every single one. Every one of them. Ray has been attached to with, alongside of another friend, myself producing, and reoccurring roles with, like people like my roommate Zach Darwin, who's pretty much been in every single one of our music videos. I'd be considered a sixth member of our band,
right,
when it comes down to it. And that's just, that's just our little piece of the pie that we'd like to show the world, where we come from, who we are as people, and honor the people who have helped craft us as not only individuals but as a band.
Yeah, it's something.
It's just an important thing that we like to honor.
I was to say, it's been something that's been kind of cool to see and notice that, the people you came up with, quote unquote, are still the people that you support in your various endeavors, whether it be like Jenica and Ink Addict, or like Mike Moore, and some of the people over at like the Party Crew Collective, and stuff like that. So it's been really cool to see that, even regardless of the success you guys have had and some of the other sponsorships and stuff that you guys have, that you still are loyal to the people that were there from the get-go. It's not always the thing you tend to notice with bands that are at the caliber that you're at currently. So it's been...
Yeah, it's for us, it's just like those people believed in us before anybody else did. So, and we're like, preaching the word before anybody ever gave a crap. So like, why would we turn our back on those people? If anything, if there's any way for us to help them in their endeavors or whatever they're looking to do in life, and, you know, by all means, please let us help you. You know, like I said, most of those people are far better off in their realms, but any sort of thing that we can do to help each other in our community and the people we grew up, with is first on our checklist.
Speaking of working with various people and kind of going back to the beginning of the band, something that I kind of had been aware of from seeing you guys almost from the beginning till now, there was a time where, you know, you guys would just play and you had a set and the show was what it was. It was still very entertaining. But then there came a point, it almost seemed overnight kind of, but I'm sure it wasn't, where instead of just playing songs, you built a set, incorporated things to keep the audience interactive with what was going on in the show, as opposed to just, here's dead time, people are tuning, whatever. Was that a conscious decision? And do you think that's, at what point does a local band kind of start having to think, if we're going to continue to do this and we want to have any kind of success, that we need to treat this more professionally, I guess is the best word I can use to describe that?
You know, I think that a lot of that stems from where the job that I do here in Detroit, which is being a talent buyer from that's connected to the Crowfoot in Pontiac, Michigan. You know, like seeing bands play all the time and, you know, kind of feeling the lull, you know, in different parts of like sets and whatnot, especially when, you know, you're up against a room of people that don't know you, you know, and that's pretty much the beginning of our band or any band, you know, when you're opening up for other bands and things like that. Like, you got to win those people over, and you can only hope that your music is going to do exactly that. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is entertainment. People came out of their houses, put their shoes on, spent their money, got babysitters, you know, or rearranged their schedules, whatever it may be, to be entertained. And that might be $5, $10, $25, $100. Who knows what they spent, you know, in that particular situation. But if you're going to play in a band and you're going to play out live, the biggest thing that I've noticed in the genre of rock and roll in general, and it's getting a little bit better, but like it's always been about this thing where like the people are in the crowd and they're looking up at the band, you know, and that's what the band is seeing, you know, like they have this egotistical like soapbox that you're standing on in rock and roll. You know, most every genre of music or whatever has the same thing, but the sense of community and the fact that you're like all together in this one exact environment, you know, you just happen to be the entertainment, but you more so, an entertainer needs to entertain people, and that's how they do their job. So when you start to break down the little like facets of being in a band and what you're doing on stage, yeah, you can stand up there and try to bask in the limelight of whatever's going on, but it's never been our intentions. You know, we started the band as a way to get free beer while Jason was going to college. You know, like it was never meant to be anything else other than a good time. So and that carries over, and that's what we try to do every single night when we get on the stage, is present a good time. So adding these little extra pieces of flavor, whether it be playing beer bottles or marching bass drums or doing these ridiculous, outlandish things, or having huge, you know, like a light tar that, like I said, Zach Darling built an entire light show. Like those little pieces of spectacle, it really makes the experience, especially like I said, when you're dealing with rock and roll, which, you know, is a hard axe to grind nowadays anyways, it makes the experience more worthy of people's time to keep coming out, you know, and you become a part of their lives, not just, you know, like them being you being these gods that you worship on stage. It's all, the environment's all one, you know, we're underneath one cloth. So that's how I kind of look at it, those little additives, is giving them something to remember.
Totally. It definitely seemed like once you guys had come back home from the tour with Guar and I want to say the Jason Newsted tour, I think those were back to back, it definitely seemed like the band just kind of had a different vibe about your live show and taking it more seriously.
Oh yeah, I mean,
even to the point where I was gonna say, even to the point where like now I'm noticing like you're wearing in-ears, like something obviously where you're more concerned about putting on a good sounding show vocally as opposed to just, probably throwing out your voice, screaming a whole bunch and doing it incorrectly or getting wasted before the show or whatever. How is that kind of a different thing? Because I know like you can hear yourself more, so is it kind of hard to still kind of put on, the vibe of being in the live room with the live instruments as opposed to being more aware of how you sound in conjunction with the rest of the band in a live setting?
Like that. I mean, it's a serious, it's. And when people say it's only like, it comes back to the entertainment. You want to do the best you can for the people in the room. Not only that, but the best you can for the people that you're on stage with, because you're only as strong as your weakest link up there. Like if I am up there out of key or out of breath or whatever's going on, then no, it doesn't matter how awesome Jason's guitar solo is or how badass James's bass sounds, the drums, because the whole thing goes down the shitter once one person fucks it up.
Right.
So that's paying attention to the overall output that you're giving the audience, and also yes, to save your voice. You're not having to fight over the stage volume of everybody. You can actually pay attention to what's being projected out there, though it might sound a lot different out in the front of the house because there's it's not directly in your ears. It's still like it's an important thing for me, I guess, moving forward to focus on giving the best that I possibly can, and as far as long as I possibly can do it. It's not easy, to be yelling 200 and something days a year consecutively and expect that the human body is going to keep, and then you bring in the drinking and the smoking and all those other things and the clubs and yelling and talking to people all day long. It's not an easy thing to keep that instrument up. So, yeah, I mean, it was a conscious effort to make sure that I'm doing as best as I can, and for my brothers up there on stage, and as well for the people who paid the money to come see the show.
Right on. This is kind of a long-winded question, so please forgive that. But Wilson as a whole, when you guys started, it started with a completely different lineup other than Jason that's still there now. Through the years, you guys have had the growing pains of any local band where you've, lost members due to not being able to uphold their end of the touring schedule or, real jobs, careers, whatever, getting in the way. Yet somehow with every lineup change, you guys have somehow actually found someone that fits the band a lot better. And it's nothing against the people that came before, but that usually doesn't happen. So with that being said, how important is just getting along with the people before it actually comes to playing on the stage, as you've encountered with the various lineup changes over the years?
For a band like us, chemistry is everything. The meat butt heads, we all find way. When you're trapped in a small van for that many hours during a day, during a week, during a month, after a while, you realize that you haven't seen the same person for. There's of course going to be, some rough around the edges moments, but it's really important for us to nip those things in the butt and make sure that we're as tight-knit as we possibly can with each other. And because it comes off on stage, it comes off when you're meandering around with each other, and it comes off when you're doing these sort of things. And, the idea of a band is exactly that, is, brothers and sisters, being together. And, like you just hope that you can grow together as musicians and write great music that people care about. But at the very beginning of the time, anytime you started a band when you were younger, you were like, my best friends and I started a band who sucked. The kid didn't even know how to play drums. So, I didn't know how to play guitar. He didn't know how to play bass, but we were just friends and liked bands. So we started. So we started one. So at the very core of all this stuff, for any musician ever, is friendship. You're doing something with your buddies. And it's important for us. Like I said, the very DNA of the band is sometimes speaks even louder than the music of the band. So it's important that we honor and cater and make sure that we're greased up with each other, if you will.
Yeah, it's been really weird to see, and it seems like with a lot of bands that tour as much as you have been and are currently, that a lot of times when the band members come home, the last thing they really want to do is spend any time with the people they've just spent months on the road with. Yet it seems like you guys are constantly, once you get back home, you actually do hang out quite a bit, and go to local shows and stuff like that and support the the Detroit scene. How important? I was gonna say, how important is it to you to still be a face? Like a lot of local bands, once they reach a certain level, it seems like they music is their job, so the last thing they want to do is be at a show or whatever. But it seems like that's the exact opposite for you guys.
I mean, I think that everybody can once in a while be guilty of taking that selfish time. That of course, like we're just everybody's a human being. You need your own time. You need time to decompress, or self-implode. Or worse yet, the unit that you created will self-implode. So there's definitely that going on. I mean, you have people who have like relationships, and their family members they haven't seen in a long time. Those take that sort of stuff takes precedent over like anything else. It just does. It's part of life. I want to see my mother and my father and my sister and my best friends and my loved ones or whatever more than I want to do any of that other stuff when I'm home. But it's also it's also like because we care so deeply about music in general and our peers and people that we consider to be a part of what we grew up doing. We want to go out and see them play, and hey, it inspires us. Like it's not like we're going. None of us would be going out to a show and judging somebody else or something like that. It's inspiring to like be in a room and feel that exact kinetic energy that that inspired you to get out of to get in the vans and bring it to town to town to town. So it's all part of the process too. We generally love music and we generally love our see our friends play it, or even just going to shows. And we'll go like 2 times last week. Or 2 times over the past week. I went over to see a local, not local, but a friend's band that was in town playing. Even if I spent a good 2 months of my life on the road, I'll go out every single time I come in and I'm available to see them. Because I like their band.
Kind of segueing more, sort of back into the band playing and recording and whatnot. Each album release has kind of seen a slight departure from the sound from the initial record. Like Standing on the Rail was kind of very kind of fun and loose, for lack of a better term. And it seemed like once you guys came out with Full Blast Fuckery, that there were some songs, the newer songs on that kind of caught at least me off guard, because it wasn't quite the same as the old stuff, but it still had that vibe. And then even going into Right to Rise, it seemed like there was more of a conscious effort to not be a quote-unquote party band anymore, and maybe be taken more seriously with the songs you're writing and the lyrics that you're singing. How has that been for all of you to write? I know Right to Rise is, I believe anyway, the first record that the whole band has written, and everyone played their collective parts that they've written. How has that process been, and what do you think of the reception so far for these newer songs that aren't necessarily the same Susan Jane's or things like that everyone's been hearing over the last 5 or 6 years?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say that wasn't a conscious decision, because it was something that we went into fully knowing that we have a bunch of different influences as dudes, and if we were limiting ourselves to the same type of sound every single time we wrote a song, then we wouldn't be servicing any of the sort of I guess egotistical part of being a musician, is being able to let your insides out, and tell different types of stories. And I think that's kind of like what you're saying, from going from like the EP to, and then exactly what you said, from where Full Blast Fuckery is for the most part just Jason and I, and then Pooey played drums up there. Even a couple of our previous members had been involved in helping to craft some of those songs, and it was never really with Full Blast Fuckery, we never thought about anything. There was no label that was going to be putting it out. We just knew that we were going to record a record. We got thanks to you, we got a nod from Steve Evetts, who we were like, oh my God, this is crazy. This guy wants to record us. And we were like, well, we were going to do an EP. We can go up there and do a couple songs. And then we were talking about it, and it was just like, all right, we should do a full-length album. And we just wrote a few more songs, and we even wrote what would be Viking Pussies Fuck Off as you know, a song right there in the studio at that moment, you know. And we just committed to it all, and there was never a thought of like, what's this going to do, you know? Or do we need this part, or what can we, you know, like that's what we never really analyzed that much. We just went in and did it. And, you know, I'm super proud of what came out of that, and it's definitely like, you know, there's definitely a lot of fun in there. But when you're moving forward, you want to try to be the best that you can as a musician, and you're thinking about different sort of things. Like if you analyze the lyrics on Blast Fuckery, in no way, shape, or form are there any party things going on there. The titles of the songs definitely
working titles,
that, but like, you know, like that was the vibe that we just kept the working titles of the song. You know, like it wasn't, like I said, it was just like, this is the song, this is what we're doing. We're not thinking about any other pieces of the puzzle. Then moving forward, Right to Rise, you get in the studio, you know, there's a label involved, and you've been writing all these songs, and you have like a catalog of like 30 songs that you wrote, and whittling it down to your best ones, and then cutting the fat off of those ones, and, you know, you start to grow, and you want to have some of those, the five of you have influences, and you want some of those to shine through, and that's pretty much the exact reason why Right to Rise sounds the way that it does. And moving forward, and the next record will probably, you know, we've been writing on that, and some of the stuff we've been writing is way different from me than one of those records. But it all kind of makes sense when you put them up against each other. Like, we've done that, you know, like, okay, yeah, I mean, this is a little bit more rough, this is a little bit more tame, this is definitely way heavier. But, you know, that's the essence of the band, and we're hoping to continue to, you know, grow in that direction and being able to open new doors, you know, instead of closing other ones.
Right. Can we expect an evening with Wilson acoustic album now that we have seen you doing a lot? Now that we've seen you doing a lot more.
Some of us would really love that, and some of us would really hate that. I mean, there's definitely moments of. I mean, you know, we learned to play a bunch of those songs on Right to Rise acoustically because we were doing so many like radio station visits where we'd have to play acoustically on the air at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So we were like learning different songs. So it's not that we haven't figured out ways to like make Wilson work in those environments, but no, I don't think that's the cards, at least not anytime in the near future.
So we won't have your Korn moment unplugged where Jonathan Davis asks almost introspectively, "Are you ready?" You won't have the "Don't look into my eyes."
I think if we did it, it would be done in a very hilarious way.
I think it'd be very funny to see that eventually.
Somewhat campy or something.
Yeah. So something, now that you guys have kind of getting more serious, I suppose. So since you guys have been touring internationally as of recently, something I've often wondered, as a band that, you know, is here in Detroit, or, well, for you in Detroit, but here in Michigan, are you now more aware of what's happening overseas, like between the attacks on Paris and like what's going on over in Brussels? Do you tend to now pay more attention to that as it affects your overseas touring plans potentially, or anything like that? Like, are you? I don't know if you ever were really more of a person who pays attention to the news in the first place, but just kind of something I've wondered.
I think as I get older, in general, like I pay much more attention to that regardless of the band. But then those things really hit like extremely close to the heart. I mean, you know, the Bataclan, we played in that venue like less than a year, you know, before what happened there. You know, I was in that room. I was on that stage. You know, like, you think about the band, you know, think about Eagles of Death Metal, who had, you know, been in that room and saw the horror in front of them. And, you know, were people playing that brought the people into that, was the band playing that brought the people into the room that essentially ended their lives. You know, like, that's a heavy thing to put on your heart. And in general, in such a sacred place of a concert venue, you know, like, that's not where you think terrorist attacks are going to happen. That's where you're going to, like, feel safe and feel like you're living your life, you know?
Right.
Not, you know, like, it's crazy to think about this stuff. And I definitely pay attention to it a lot more, like I said, as I'm getting older. But even in Belgium, in Brussels, we were there 2 months, not even 2 months, in that same exact area.
Yeah.
Before that happened, like it's insane to think about that. And like we have parents and loved ones who are like, oh my God, like they start to call you more regularly when you're on the road. It's a scary thought to think about that, but more or less think about what's happening in the world, and yeah, I can't even begin to describe how horrific that must have been for any of those people, the cities that were involved, in countries that were involved with that. And my heart bleeds for them, man. I couldn't imagine like being here in Detroit and at the Crowfoot and something like that happening, or even at our airport. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think we all pay attention a lot more.
It's definitely something that I've wondered, through following a lot of bands and stuff. You see them anytime anyone ends up in Texas, when they go to Dimebag's gravesite, or what is it? I can't remember the venue in Ohio where he was shot. Like, it's kind of like taped off. There's, I'm sure it's a very heavy vibe that, I can't imagine, being able to be in a room where that presence is still probably still there. So I know, like I said, I know you guys have been over to both those spots relatively recently, and it would seem like something that would just kind of be a little more impactful for you guys as opposed to just, like myself, where it's like, oh, that's shitty that happened, and this would be the last place I would want something like this to happen. But it's got to have more weight for you guys having, been on that stage, been in those rooms, and just knowing that, like now maybe that's tucked in the back of your mind at any point that something could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's important that you don't live your life, let them, essentially, if you let them scare you from living your life, and it's like you've let them live. That's exactly what they're looking to do in those positions. So, like, when we recently played Paris, after the Bataclan happened, we were all, like, kind of wondering how it was going to go, and we pull up our van to the venue, and it's like 2 hours before the doors, and there's a line around the corner, and the place sold out, and it was the most insane show of the entire tour. It was like it was like nothing ever happened, and it was awesome. Empowering to see the people treated like that. Like, you're not going to scare us. We're going to live our lives, and no matter what you do, you can't take that. Can't take our freedom away like that. But, like, this is our choice. In a smaller world, lots. We're talking about being in a concert venue, like that pales in comparison to like millions of other different things that you can and cannot do with your time, sporting events, and whatnot. But it was extremely powerful to feel the room so alive after such darkness fell upon that city.
It's gotta feel good to be part of the resurgence of sorts of just being able to provide those people with a relief, an escape for what they're going through.
Sure,
as well.
I think they provided us with relief. Like, I mean, like to see that the lack of fear in their eyes, just them losing their shit. It's like, oh well, I don't have to be afraid to be on this stage. I don't have to be afraid to be like a sitting duck, essentially, if there's something that was going to happen. Like it was freeing. Because I'm not gonna lie, every one of us were a little scared. It's just, like I might have tried to be, like a little bit harder about it all. Like, no, that's gonna be fine. It's my mom and my dad. But in the back of my head, I'm like, fuck, like that could be us on stage. You never know,
Yeah.
And it was amazing to feel the energy in the room.
Kind of another bum out topic is that's not really funny to laugh at, but just the I guess it's the awkward thing you do. But something else that's kind of equally shitty to happen to bands, and something for any of the local bands potentially listening, or any bands listening in general, with a lot of the break-ins that have occurred to a lot of people's vans, or even like bus and van accidents, like the one the members of the Ghost Inside were involved in, and seeing the repercussions that they've been dealing with over the last few months of that. How how have you guys? Has it changed how you guys have toured in the drives that you do, or how long you drive, or anything like that? Has it really affected you guys at all either?
Those sort of situations of what a band like the Ghost Inside went through is the epitome of a nightmare, not only for the guys involved, but for their families and for their loved ones, for the people that care about them. Like every single day, you don't realize that every single day that you're out there, it's a gamble, it's just like any single time you get on the road to drive, there's always a chance some sort of accident is going to happen. However, when you're in these big buses, you feel like you're unbreakable, going down the road. It feels like something's going to happen, we'll be fine. Versus being like in a Sierra or something like that, when you're in a little box or like any sort of like small vehicle. Like you don't really think about the horror that could happen if something like that were to go down. And it is every single musician's and every single person who cares about a musician's worst fear to have something like that happen. Mm-hmm. And to see a band like the Ghost Inside, specifically, Andrew, come out of it with not only such a great point of view on the horror that they've had to go through, but to continue to want to do the exact thing that put them in that position. Right. It is more than inspiring, that's for sure. It is. It makes you realize that in the world, all those stupid things that you complain about, being on the road and doing all these mundane things that may or may not be the minutia of your day or whatever. It should be all worth it. When a person like that can go through what they went through, and he's a great guy, and to go through what they went through and get back up like that, if you have anything to complain about, you might as well just stop doing what you're doing, and go home and take a nap, because it's time for you to reevaluate what you're doing with your life. It's extremely, like I said, like every single day is you realize when those things happen that you're like, you're rolling the dice, Right. And as a band, we're very conscious about drive shifts, like we make sure that like everybody drives when we're in the van, and everybody drives for a specific period of time, unless they're like extremely exhausted. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we figure it out. But we don't let people drive long, Right. And we've went through every single precaution possible to protect our valuables, whether that's building a bed in our van and making sure that, like, if the weather permits, that somebody stays in the van every night, and we have the obvious locks on everything, and we try to park in places that are well lit, and like we're constantly checking on our stuff when we're at the venue, la-da-da, like there's a lot of, there's your entire life in like a little box behind your behind a van, everything you've worked for, we send to you, save, you put into what's inside of that, essentially. So for it to be just magically gone in the morning, or walking up to the venue and your stuff is gone, that sort of feeling is like, it makes people want to give up. But again, you look at people like Andrew and all the bands that went through any of those situations, even theft, and kept going. That alone, if that alone is a motivation for you, then you're doing the wrong. Then you're in the wrong business,
Right. Well, I'm going to give you the last couple of questions, and then I'll let you go and get back to your evening. So you're coming. Today's the 6th. You'll be here next Friday with We Came as Romans tour. It seems like it's one of the first tours you've done in the last little bit where you're playing with like kind of heavier metal bands. How excited are you, A, to come back to Grand Rapids, which I feel like you haven't been to in a little while, and how is it going into another tour where you're kind of the oddball on the bill, so to speak? I know Jason, when I last talked to Jason, he was like, yeah, we haven't played one of these kind of shows in a while. Like, it'll be kind of fun being, the sore thumb on the bill, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, The thing is it's funny because I think that we're always kind of the sore thumb in a way on the bill, but like for some reason, like when you look at all the different touring things we've done, there's been little parts of our band that's made sense with that, the headliner or whatever it is, but it's never like all the way made sense. Here and there, we've had a couple different times where it's like, okay, this works, but I think it's just a vibe of the band playing and being like we talked about earlier, being a live show that you're trying to give your all for the people who came out. That really like allows us to do what we do. So it'll be interesting, and we're actually really looking forward to this type of tour because we haven't done something like this in a long time, and we're excited to be put up against every night. We're excited to be put up against the wall. So it's going to be fun to see what comes out of it. And coming to Grand Rapids in general is going to be awesome. Like you said, it's been a long time, and we haven't played that stage in quite some time. So, yeah, I mean, we're extremely pumped about coming back, for sure. It's been something that we've been waiting to. We've been trying to get, we hope every tour that we get comes through Grand Rapids, so we can, support something up there, grow the band and see some people, some familiar faces, but on top of it, hopefully open, some brain holes up to Wilson that haven't been able to take us on yet,
And lastly, what is your favorite song to play live and why?
Oh, to play live?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Windows Down. I just from the new record, I think it just feels so good. There's a lot of energy in the song, and like I get to tell a little bit of a story about Detroit, about people that I care about, and get to hopefully sometimes it's always fun when people know the song and hear them yell the words Detroit, Michigan in it. I get to it's just a fun, loving, good time. It rocks, and you always see, even if they don't know who the band is, you always see them light up. When that song's done. It's kind of like when we would play like AC/DC's Back in Black every single night because on tour because we knew that nobody knew who our band was. So like if we do this, like when people are gonna be like, oh, I totally get who they are now.
Right.
As soon as you hear the band cover something like that, you're like, oh, okay, now I know what they're doing.
Is that
and
why
that's
you're
kind of the same thing with Windows Down for us as a band? If we're playing our own original music, if somebody didn't know the band, that's a really great way to be introduced to the band as like the dynamic of what the band is able to do and is doing. And I just had the best time playing that song live.
Is that why still the Nazareth cover is in there now? Kind of give the band,
yeah.
give everyone.
That, we thought we were gonna put it on the record, but we didn't.
Record Store Days, Black Friday Record Store Day. You should do it for that.
Exactly.
And I'd also be remiss now that you brought up the whole point of Windows Down with the Detroit part. You guys were overseas and apparently had an encore request where people chanted Detroit instead of encore. How was that? And I know Detroit, you guys have put Detroit, literally on your guys' back as, something you're very proud to be from. So much so that you literally wear something Michigan-based as your sleeve for your tattoo, the various seasons and such. What does it mean to you to be from Detroit and being a band that's on tour, since it seems to have a certain connotation to a lot of people? We're Detroit Rock City, so on and so forth. What does it mean to you over the years, having, branched out into the Midwest and then eventually now overseas? What does it feel like to be from Detroit now?
It feels like we always knew it felt like, and it feels like that in every single room. Every single room we play for people in. It's it's really nice to be able to tell at least a little bit of a positive side about the place that you come from, which, generally speaking, over the past many of years, has been deemed as this deep, dark, burned down zombie land. In the past 5 years, we've had a lot of those happen.
Right.
And like to be able to move into these different areas for the night and tell a little bit about where we come from, not just the city in itself, but the people who inhabit the city and the people who made us who we are. There's we're from a very hard-working part of the country, and have went through hell over and over again. It's not, our city's motto and the way that we were founded, it was basically, like, through the ashes we will rise. Like we started as like if I can quote whatever that rapper is, it started from the top, started from the bottom. Now we're here.
That would be Drake from Canada.
But like that's that's the best part of touring is being able to like leave a little bit of who you are in that room and in the people's hopefully souls that you played for. For us, it's important that we try to do our best to tell the people that would, the place that we're playing for, that there's a lot more than what you're seeing, and even when you do see the good stuff in the press or whatever, there's still more. There's still history, a rich history, and we're very prideful of that.
Awesome. Well, that was all I had for you. So thank you for your time, and we will see you next Friday.
Thank you for your time, buddy.
Not a problem. See you next Friday, man. All right, and that was my interview with Chad Nicefield, again from the band Wilson. Again, that was a little bit dated. I ended off with me saying see you Friday. That was when they were on tour with We Came as Romans, as you heard. Since then, that band's kind of just, done what they always do. They were hitting the road. They just did a small run with Breaking Benjamin that led to them doing Shipped Rocked again, and then finishing up that tour with Breaking Benjamin out at Cleveland. Was really cool to see them finish the album cycle strong. They every single one of those shows on the Breaking Benjamin tour was sold out, and they are currently wrapping up pre-production, I would assume, for the new record, based on what I've seen on their socials, saying that they're not going to be touring until the new record's out. So hopefully can talk to one of the guys and soon and see how that's coming along, and maybe when we can expect some new music from the camp. And yeah, but I wanted to end the podcast the way I do with everyone so far that we've had a musical guest on, and leave you with a track from Wilson. Gonna go a little more old school with this one, kind of the upside of having the knowledge of them before they got to where they are now with all their fans and a couple of releases under their belt. This is actually going to be a version of Snake Eyes that had Chad redoing the vocals from the song when it appeared originally on their EP, Standing on the Reel, with their original singer. A lot of people didn't know that Chad wasn't the original vocalist, and it's kind of surprising to hear how similar Chad was to their original vocalist. So much so that when I had seen Chad for the first time, I fucking didn't even know that they had a new dude. That's how similar it sounded. So this is actually a really old song. They have since re-recorded it again for their full-length Full Blast Fuckery. So there's little different nuances to that, but I think for the old school Wilson fans such as myself, there's always a little bit of more love and nostalgia attached to this version. So I'm going to end with this, and hopefully you dug this, and maybe I can find some more older interviews that I've done and have you all listen to those. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.